Bionicle Legends 9 Shadows in the Sky. Written by Greg Farsty. Recording by Dungeoneer Harold. Chapter 5. Kirip woke up in his cell. It took him a moment to remember what had happened to him. Then he recalled spying on the Toa Nuva of air and Tanma from above, a blast of wind, and a sudden slam into the ground. Looking around, he recognized the chamber he was in as one of the smaller ones in the Abmatoran shelter. The Shadow Matoran chuckled. It was funny. Here he was, the former leader of Cardinui, now captured by his own people. "Ignorant fools," he thought. "They can't keep me locked up. Already I see a way out, and they will pay dearly for their lack of respect." He sat up. It was then he realized his bag was gone, and with it the fragment of keystone he carried. He knew he should have told the Makuta about possessing it, but he had figured he might be able to use its existence someday to win influence with them. Now it was in the hands of the Toa Nuva. Yet another reason to escape, he thought. The Makuta have to be told the Toa possess at least 2 of the pieces now. It would take only a few moments to blast open a weak spot in the ceiling with his shadow energy. He raised his arm, then hesitated. He could hear voices coming from a nearby room. What were they saying? He put his audio receptor to the wall to listen. It was 2 of the Toa Nuva. That was obvious, though he did not know which ones. They were talking about the Brotherhood of Makuta and the Shadow Leeches. "Are you certain sure this is going to work?" asked one. "Very sure," replied the other. "With what we know, we can destroy all the Shadow Leeches and the ability of the Brotherhood to make more. They will have corrupted their last Matoran of light." "Then what are we long waiting for? Let's do it." "Give me a few hours. I need to make sure the Matoran know what they have to do. Then we strike." Kirip got to his feet, startled and worried. Had the Toa discovered the location of Mutran's hive? And what was this about a means to destroy Shadow Leeches? Mutran had to be warned. He unleashed a blast of dark energy at the ceiling, blowing a hole large enough for him to pass through. An instant later he was free and headed for Mutran's hidden hive. The 3 Toa Nuva watched him go. Pohatu smiled. "Well, he fell for it. Now what?" Kopaka Nuva checked his Midak Sky Blaster, and then mounted it back on his shoulder. The weapon's name had come from Pohatu and Liwa. Midak was an Onu Matoran on the island of Madanui, a very strange one, who much preferred being out in the light to being in the dark tunnels of his village. Despite having weak eyesight in bright sunshine, he still spent most of his time outside, and told anyone who would listen about the thrills of pure light. Most Matoran thought he was nice, if a little off, and most Onu Matoran had slightly harsher descriptions of him. But Pohatu considered him a friend, and thought this would be just the sort of weapon he would have enjoyed using. As for Sky Blaster, Liwa had always wanted a weapon called that. So, since none of the other Toa Nuva cared enough to debate, the new weapons became Midak Sky Blasters. "Now we give him a minute's head start, then we go after him," said Kopaka Nuva. "With luck, he will lead us right to the home of the Shadow Leeches." "That was sharp smart to fool him into thinking we already knew where it was," said Liwa. "Of course, it would never have worked without my acting talent." Pohatu laughed. "That's true, brother. After all, you've been acting like you were a Toa for years." Liwa Nuva smiled at the joke. "And a most ever-convincing performance it has been." 5 other Toa to choose from, and I am stuck with 2 that are just this side of being Rahi," muttered Kopaka. "Let's go." "Not without us." Tama was standing in the doorway, flanked by Photok and Solek. "This is our home. It's our people who have been corrupted. No one else is going to fight for them." Kopaka Nuva wanted to argue, but he knew there was no time. "All right, then the 6 of us will go. You ride with us. The fewer potential targets we give the Makuta, the better. Stay low, keep your mouth shut, and try not to get killed." "Listen to him," added Liwa Nuva. "Trust me, I've never done any of those 3 things, and look where I wound up." Kirip flew as fast as he could toward the eastern side of the vast cavern that was Cardinui. He shot through layers of mist that obscured the cavern entrances, focused on reaching his destination. Occasionally he would allow himself to think about the vast reward Antraz would surely give him for his information. Perhaps his actions might even lead to the deaths of 3 Toanuva. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So intent was he on his mission that he never noticed the Toanuva pursuing him, with 3 Abmatorn riding along with them. They were staying some distance behind, so as not to alert Kirip to their presence. If he so much as looked over his shoulder too soon, the whole plan would fail. Kirip would have been shocked if he had glanced behind and realized he had been duped. He would have been even more surprised if he had turned in time to see 3 Toa suddenly become 4. "We're being followed," said Liwanuva. "I know," Kopaka-Nuva replied. "You know?" "Mask of Vision, remember?" said Kopaka. "It's not just a cute name, unlike, say, Skyblaster." "So who is he? Another of the Makuta?" asked Pohatu, looking back at their pursuer. The figure didn't look like a Makuta. It looked like a Toa. Then again, being shapeshifters, the Makuta could look like whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. "I've never seen him before," said Solek. "So far, he's just following," said Kopaka. "If he makes a hostile move, then we'll deal with him. Right now, we need to worry about Kirip." "He's pulling away," said Pohatu. "If we don't speed up, we're going to lose him." The words were barely out of Pohatu's mouth when he and Photak suddenly shot forward so fast they were a blur. They were almost on top of Kirip before the Toanuva of stone recovered from his surprise and veered them away. When he and Photak had rejoined the others, Pohatu finally allowed himself to exclaim, "What the rampaging Rahi was that?" Photak shook his head, smiling. "No idea, but it was sure fun. I just thought about us going faster and zing." "Nothing like that ever happened to you before?" "No," said the Avmatorn. "And I didn't trigger the Mask of Speed," said Pohatu, puzzled. "Well, whatever it was, next time, warn me." But Photak wasn't paying attention. He was looking up at where a huge, winged, multi-headed Rahi was headed, straight for them. "Warn you. Got it. Is now a good time?" Kopaka and Liwa saw the menace at the same time, but before they could form a battle plan and attack, their mysterious pursuer had shot up into the sky to confront the beast. The Rahi eyed him with barely disguised glee, no doubt seeing a sure meal in its future. The strange figure raised a hand as if bidding the creature to halt. That was weird enough, but then the Rahi actually did stop in midair. A slight quiver ran down the length of its body. Its eyes grew wide and its breathing incredibly rapid. An instant later, it dropped like a rock and plummeted toward the swamp. The Nuva's mysterious pursuer, the self-styled Toa Ignika, watched the Rahi fall with a mixture of regret and satisfaction. The Mask of Life did not like killing any living thing. It felt wrong, but it... "No, now I have a body. Now I am he, not it," the new being thought. Did not have enough experience in this new body to know how to stop the Rahi without ending its existence. So he chose the most merciful option, simply speeding up the creature's life processes until they reached their natural point of exhaustion. Of course, the 3 Toanuva did not know that. All they knew was that a being who looked like a Toa stopped a multi-ton Rahi by holding up his hand. And now that same being was hovering in the sky watching the Toa in silence, as if waiting for an invitation to join them. Kopaka looked at Pohatu and Liwa. Then, with a grim smile, he gestured for the new Toa to come along. "And now," said the Toanuva of ice, "we're 7. Unaware of what was going on in the skies behind him, Kirip approached the fog-shrouded leech hive, which hung suspended from the roof of the vast cavern. He was perhaps 200 yards from it when its entrance suddenly opened. Vikan flew out, riding on top of what Kirip first thought was another Matoran. Then he got a look at what the creature really was, as it flew by, and even the Shadow Matoran felt sickened by the sight. Still, this wasn't the time to be sentimental. He had a message to deliver. He flew straight toward the once again concealed opening. A mild bolt of shadow energy triggered it to slide aside once more. "Mutran!" Kirip shouted as he landed on the hive floor. "The Toanuva are planning an attack on the shadow leeches. You have to prepare." Mutran took 2 steps forward and savagely backhanded the Matoran, sending him sprawling on the stone.
The Toanuva? You mean those Toanuva? The ones you led here?
He snarled, pointing through the rapidly closing entrance. Kirip turned and could just see 4 Toa and 3 Matoran bearing down on the hive. Kopaka-Nuva saw the entrance slam shut. It was a puzzle why he had been unable to spot this hive before using his Kanohi mask. Perhaps something in the mist blocked his power. That would be a mystery for later. He looked over at Pohatu. "You want to do the honors?" "Sure," said Pohatu. "I'll knock." The Toe of Stone summoned his willpower and materialized a half-dozen good-sized boulders, hurling them toward the hatch. They struck hard, battering the gateway. "They aren't answering," said Liwa. "Let me ring the greet bell." The Toe of Air sent a burst of air at the entrance so powerful that it seeped through the cracks and formed a cyclone on the other side. The winds caught Kirip, slamming him into the walls, but Mutran stood rooted to the ground. Kopaka-Nuva gave Liwa a few moments and said, "Perhaps no one is home. Let's see if they left the door open." He readied an ice blast, but Solek reached out a hand to stop him. "Let us, please," said the Abmatoran. After a moment's consideration, Kopaka nodded. The 3 Matoran raised their weapons and sent light energy at the weakened hatch. Their bursts hit on target, blowing the gateway in. It flew into the hive, only to be caught by Mutran.
"Toa are always so noisy,"
hissed the Makuta.
"No wonder I could never get any work done around your kind in the old days."
The Toa and Matoran charged ahead. They saw no sign of the Shadow Leech tanks, but they did discover something else quite strange. The hive was far bigger on the inside than it seemed from the outside, with slime-covered tunnels that wound deep into its interior. "Use the Sky Blasters," Kopaka said. "Find the Shadow Leeches and target them. Solek and I will handle this Makuta." Pohatu, Liwa, Tanma, Photok, and the Toa Ignika charged ahead. Surprisingly, Mutran made no effort to stop them. He just watched them fly past on their way deeper into the hive. Then he turned back to the hovering Kopaka-Nuva, arms outstretched, and said,
"All right, Toa, handle me, if you can."
Viken did his best to steer the flying Rahi beneath him, where it was supposed to go. It wasn't easy, having Matoran-level intelligence. The beast was willful, not to mention extremely unhappy with its current appearance. He had been lucky so far. The Toanuva had been so intent on following Kirip, they hadn't noticed his exit. He dove as soon as possible, so as to be lost in the mists of the swamp before they changed their minds. Now he was skimming over the waters, heading for the portal out of Cardanui. Viken would have much preferred being back in the cave, helping Mutran with one of his experiments, or even being one of his experiments, to this task. He had heard enough about Icarax to know this was a suicide mission. When other Makuta considered one of their number to be too violent and destructive, there's a problem. The sealed portal was just ahead. He steered the Rahi right for it, despite its protests. At the last possible moment, it opened just wide enough to admit the 2 of them. Then it slammed shut again. He was out of Cardanui and on his way to deliver Antroz's message. He wasn't sure who he pitied more, himself or the Toanuva. Neither was likely to survive a meeting with Icarax. End of Chapter 5.